The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, welcome to our webinar, Best Practices in Mobile Device Management, or what we like to call what every business must understand to manage access to its information and control hidden costs in this post-PC era. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Before we begin, let's go over some basic housekeeping. We're sensitive to your time, and we're aiming to bring this in at around 50 to 55 minutes. So depending on the Q&A, we'll definitely bring it in by noon. Your individual phone lines are muted, and if you have any questions along the way, simply click on the raise hand icon and type your question in, and we'll do our best to address it quickly. So that being said, let me introduce you to today's speakers and give you a little background about us. My name is Nadia Robertson, and I'm the marketing assistant here at FPA. Craig Pollock is the founder and CEO of FPA. He's been in the industry implementing solutions and managing technology for small to mid-sized businesses for over 25 years now. His background is in business systems development, specifically application development. While running FPA, he also acts as the outsourced CIO and CTO for a number of our clients. And because of his knowledge and expertise, it's one of the reasons why FPA specializes in investment advisor, CPA, and manufacturer and distributor vertical markets. He's active in the industry, speaks at events, and has a number of articles published. Scott Harrington is our client relationship executive at FPA. Prior to joining FPA, Scott owned his own IT consulting firm in San Diego. Prior to moving into his client relationship role, Scott was a project manager for FPA, where he worked directly with clients managing their information technology. Now let me give you a little background about FPA. We've been in business for over 21 years, and we currently have about 25 employees. They're all full-time staff. We don't outsource anything to do with third parties. We have our own dedicated network operations center where we run our clients' networks. One of our mantras is business before technology. To us, this means we focus on the business aspects and the value proposition technology that we bring to our clients' businesses. It's not about technology for technology's sake. A lot of companies have core values that pretty much are run-of-the-mill. We've seen companies with integrity, honesty, fast, etc. Ours is a little different. We really believe in our core values, and the primary one is simple. Take care of the clients. We believe if we're doing this, everything else will fall into place. And lastly, we focus on your IT so that you can focus on your business. That may seem like a marketing line tag, but we really do approach everything this way. We work with a number of clients in the greater Los Angeles area. We have clients that we've opened our doors with 21 years ago, as well as clients we've gotten last week. We specialize in implementing and supporting technology for small to mid-sized businesses. Beyond our technical expertise, systems and processes, and the how we do what we do, we believe that our ability to develop long-term and meaningful relationships with our clients makes all the difference when it comes to our clients' success with technology. And at this point, let me turn it over to Craig Pollock to get us going.
Great. Thanks, Nadia. That was a great intro. Hopefully I can live up to all you said there. So what's going on? So the first thing that I want to kind of talk about, it's really easy to talk about the best practices in mobile device management, but let's take a step back and take a 30,000-foot view and talk about what's going on out there that this is even a topic that we should be talking about. So first thing I'd like to bring to mind is that some of the things that we'll talk about here, you can see what the growth is like and what's happening out there in the quote-unquote post-PC era. And to that degree, these are some information, some statistics that have been brought to light from Symantec, from Gartner, from some other research firms that are really trying to keep a pulse on what's going on out there. So you can see that 71% of businesses place high importance on mobile computing. 70% of businesses are planning some sort of corporate store for mobile applications. And they're estimating that by 2016, over 350 million employees will be using their smartphones, and out of those, 200 million will be bringing their own devices. So from a management perspective, from a business operations perspective, from an information security and access perspective, those are huge impacts to what the future of computing is going to be and future of technology and how businesses run. And it's just a further development of all the technology and what is changing in the landscape out there. So this is the future of computing, and things are going to be more and more device independent. So some of the things that we found is that 68% of all smartphones used for businesses were owned by employees. So that brings a whole new perspective and a whole new management component to running your IT. So if you think about that, nearly 77% of all companies have allowed employees to use their personal devices for work-related activities. Nearly half of all companies permit BYOD. 59% of businesses are already making line of business applications accessible. Business spending on mobile projects will grow by 100%. So that means that within 2 more years, the spending will double on mobile apps, mobile projects. And you think about that growth and all that's going on out there, and at the same time, less than 5% of surveyed are even planning for the increased workload on their network. So there's impacts out there that people aren't even planning for, and yet know that it's going to be an impact to their systems. So that's kind of the whole purpose of what we're talking about here. So some of the things that we're hoping to pass along to you today, and what the goal of this webinar is, at a base level, what the key differences are between mobility and BYOD, what some of the top drivers are that are forcing mobility on you, whether you like it or not, it's coming. Some of the key threats to your business based on mobility, and the shocking misunderstanding most business owners have about what your current exposure to data leakage is, and what kind of the foundations for a secure, compliant, and effective approach to mobility looks like. So that said, what's the goal? Well, hopefully that you guys will take away beyond just the knowledge of this, the ability to enable you to effectively prepare and manage for things in the post-PC era, how to minimize the impact to your business to manage these devices, and lastly, to ensure that you'll never lose any critical intellectual property due to a lost or stolen device. So these are hopefully the big takeaways that you guys will get out of all of this. But first, before we go any further, I want to do a quick little poll and get some information about what's going on and what your sense is of things right now. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull this up. So tell me, which best describes your own personal mobile status? You currently get email, you get your company email on your personal device, or no, you don't get email on your personal device? And this is where I really wish I had handy. Oh, look at that, I do. Let's see if it comes up. I'll just give it another couple minutes, couple seconds. Oh, taking a while. All right, we just have a couple more people that we're looking to complete the poll with. Give us just a second. All right. 2, 1. All right, the poll's closing. So what did we see? Well, let me share that with you real quickly. So 86% of you out there are currently getting email on your personal devices. So this is exactly what we're talking about of what's going on out there. So we'll dive a little bit further. And one quick question here, again, to kind of put some things in perspective. So now that we know that 86%, or nearly all of you, are getting email on your corporate email on your personal device. Now let's drill a little further and see which best describes your understanding of your current mobile environment. I know for sure no devices are connected to our network. I'm pretty sure no devices connect to our network. I don't know how many devices connect to our network, and I know exactly how many devices connect to our network. Oh, I really need the theme song for Jeopardy here. All right, we have 75% or so voted. So waiting for the rest of you to alt tab and come back to the webinar from whatever it is that you're doing. Anyone? Bueller? Okay, getting close. Just have a couple more people that we're waiting on. All right. 3, 2, 1, and all voting is done. So let's see what the results are here. So 14% say you're pretty sure there are no devices, 29% I don't know how many devices, and 57% say I know exactly how many devices. Well, that's pretty interesting. So we'll see how this plays out as we continue on here. So drilling down a little bit further, what is the level of awareness? So this quick little chart shows you what's going on out there. What's the confidence in knowing what types of devices? 9% are completely aware. 38% say that they're extremely aware. 35% say they're fairly aware, and 13% say they're vaguely aware, and 4% not at all. So it's interesting if you compare what our findings were a second ago, that 57% of you on the webinar know exactly how many devices, and yet 9% of those surveyed out in the real world, quote unquote, only 9% are completely sure. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between those two numbers. So driving a little bit further, what are some of the big devices that are out there? And you can see that BlackBerry is running at probably about 75% of the market. And you think about that, well, BlackBerry's just been sliding and sliding and sliding. The reality is from a corporate and from an enterprise perspective, BlackBerry was so entrenched that they hold such a tight rein on the environment. And one of the reasons is because of the BlackBerry enterprise server that got in, and IT liked BlackBerry because they were able to control it and lock it down. And so BlackBerry had a pretty big foothold in the industry and in this space before the iPhone, iPad, and Droids came along. But IT is now losing control of that, and you can see how much between the iPhone and the iPad and Droids, how much control and how much of a market space they're taking up. And the thing to think about is the iPhone, the iPad, the Droid, and even Windows phones and tablet PCs, these are all the devices that we're talking about, that there's some huge percentage of these devices that are not corporate issued devices. probably upwards in the 80 to 90 percentile of them being personal devices that people are bringing in. Probably higher in the 90 to 95% range, if, above that. So that's what we're looking at. So what is the difference between mobility and BYOD? Well, mobility is the concept of accessing your information from any sort of platform, whether it's a laptop, whether it's your smartphone, iPhone, BlackBerry, tablet, any sort of device that's going to allow you to get to your information. So the concept of BYOD was actually, the term was originated by Intel probably about, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago. But BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. And the concept is that people are bringing their own mobile devices and connecting up to the corporate network. And so BYOD conceptually is a subset of the concept of mobility. And you think about it, it all started with email. Email was the first application. It was the first business integration. It was the first connection, as it were, where corporate information started getting onto mobile devices and whatnot. And then it just kind of migrated out from there. Once you have email, then you want to open attachments. Then you want to be able to reply to emails with modified attachments. So the practice and the concept of mobility and what it does for you from a workflow perspective has kind of creeped, as it were, scope creeped into this larger thing. The other thing that we have going on is this overall concept of the consumerization of technology. So the concept of that is, it used to be that technology was controlled by the IT department and nobody had, computers. And it, over the last 20 years, it's grown to the PC, personal computer market. And then from there, when the smartphones kind of took off, it grew. And then we had the whole iPad and tablet concept. And you're getting away from the concept of, and the line is getting murkier of, where is my connection and where is my control of my data, when I say my being the owner of the business and the enterprise, as opposed to, it used to be real easy to conceptualize that, hey, I had everything within my 4 walls and I could control access to my information, and now that line is pretty much not only gone gray, but just been shattered. So the consumerization of technology, where the iPod brought about the whole cloud access to music, has kind of proliferated into the information outside of just music, and accessing your files from anywhere, storing your files, your personal files, doing backups of your personal files using Mozy and Carbonite and iBackup and iCloud, and doing all of those sorts of things. So the consumerization of technology has totally changed the mindset of people out there. And because of that, we now personally access information anywhere and from everywhere. And it's kind of changed what people's perception of how they should be working. And ultimately, this is changing the workforce, because as we grow and as we get older, and as younger people who have grown up with this consumerization and grown up with this cloud concept and grown up with this mobility and this pretty much access to information from anywhere, anytime, with anything, it's changing how business has to respond to that. So what are some of the key drivers for mobility in BYOD? It provides a competitive advantage. It's seen as an employee benefit. Useful in employee recruitment or retention, again, because the workforce is changing. Because of that, a lot of workers feel that they have the right to use their own devices. Whether or not that's true, whether or not you agree with that, that's how things are changing. On top of that, it's seen as boosting creativity and innovation. It's seen as improving the work-life balance. And some of you might think that, the opposite holds true, that, gee, if you're connecting to information, you're connecting to your work all the time, anytime, how does that have a a work-life balance, and how does that improve the work-life balance when you don't have a clear on-off button like you used to have? Well, the theory goes that now that people are so used to being on all the time, it's actually more comforting knowing that you have access to this information, and knowing that you can access things, and knowing that you don't have to stay at the office and work late, and then you have more flexibility, actually brings about more of a work-life balance because just the whole environment has changed, and everybody is thinking that now. So it also improves the ability to work off-site. That kind of goes without saying. It avoids having to carry multiple devices, and that's certainly true for BYOD, where you don't have to carry a work device and your personal device. You can just carry one. Ultimately, it improves the employee's view of the company because they now think that you're a forward-thinking company, that you're more in touch with what's going on these days, that you're more invested. And it also similarly improves your customers' view of the company. Okay, so what are some of the key drivers that are fueling that? So I'm sorry, those are the key drivers that are fueling that. We need to think about things in terms, at this point, of what the objectives are from the business perspective, and what does the mobility bring to the business, and how should you be thinking about what the goals and objectives are for moving into this mobility area with your business. Can it make your business more efficient? Can it make it more effective? Can it make your staff more productive? Can you improve staff retention by having these policies and having this functionality in place? Can you improve customer service? Can it be efficiently and effectively managed? And lastly, one of the huge objectives that you need to know ahead of time is you need to know what the costs are. So thinking about that, that leads into the key impacts. So first off, the corporate culture and the organizational philosophy. How is that going to impact how your company runs, what the culture is like? Again, when you think about that work-life balance, that access to information anywhere, the accessibility, what are your expectations of your staff now that they have information and they have the ability to work at different times of the day? Does that change? Does their expectation change? What goes on around security? This is the biggest #1 issue that we've seen out there in terms of people's either perception or misperception about allowing and implementing a mobility initiative is the security around the data. The other things to think about is increased utilization of network bandwidth, increased help desk support, mobile threats, and some of the things to think about is that corporate networks get hit hard by the use of mobile devices, and most of the time you're not even aware of it. And oftentimes you have your network, and you might even have your network now where you're really not taking into consideration the impact to your bandwidth just on your local network, because now you have everybody in your organization having smartphones. And they may not even be accessing your corporate information, but they are passively accessing your corporate network and using your resources. So anybody who has a cell phone and they have a Wi-Fi enabled cell phone, and you have your Wi-Fi hotspot on, or just your WAP on, they may be piggybacking onto your network and sucking up resources that you're not even aware of. So what ends up happening is people, your staff will be running Pandora, or they'll be watching YouTube videos, or they'll be sending even just personal emails or doing other things. But rather than going out over the cell network, they're going out over your corporate network, and now your network is starting to slow down, and you don't even realize why that is. So the WAPs end up taking a hit way above and beyond what they were projected to support when they were initially installed. So one of the examples I have is a company called Blue Coat, which is a web and cloud security company. they say that over a 2-week period, a single employee using an iPhone and an iPad consumed nearly 53 gigabytes of bandwidth traffic on your corporate network. So that's a huge impact that people aren't really taking into consideration when they're building out their mobility policy and the infrastructure to support it. When an employee brings their own devices to work as part of company policy, who supports the devices? The most common response, or at least what most business owners hope, is that it's the carrier, that if they have an issue, they want, they're hoping that their end user will go and call, AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile when they have a problem. But usually they don't. Usually the first call is to the help desk. So now the help desk has to take on additional support for devices that aren't even related to the business operations. So now you're paying for IT support, whether it's in-house or off-site or outsourced, that you're paying for that you don't even realize. And again, this is another one of those hidden costs of IT. So the last key impact that you should be thinking about is, at a base minimum, what an acceptable use policy looks like around your whole mobility initiative. So some of the things to think about when you're thinking about putting together your acceptable use policy, first off, is to start and think about what your risks might be. So one of the biggest risks out there, and it's the thing that's on everybody's mind, we just did a survey on this, is that it's security, and I talked about it a slide or two ago. But what we like to call data leakage, which is information that you have that you don't even realize is leaking out there. So you may think it's fairly harmless to just say, yeah, it's fine if I give somebody access to email. But at the end of the day, what ends up happening is not only is the information in those emails out there on the device, but so is your contact information, so is your customer list, so is intellectual property, all the attachments that go back and forth on your devices, on an email that theoretically you think you're keeping within your four walls. Now people have access, and they can email it out, they can open it up, they can save it to their desktops, they can do all sorts of other things. So, that's a huge, huge risk, and the question then becomes, how do you control that? Well, we'll get to that in a second. So when you think about data leakage, another area for that, or an opportunity for that, is staff, quote-unquote, separation. Meaning, what happens when you terminate somebody, or what happens when somebody quits? What happens to their device? Do you have a policy in place that allows you to retrieve that device before they leave so that you can wipe it of all of your information? What about identity theft and people stealing the devices and stealing their personal identities, and then everything that goes along with that in terms of their accessibility and accessibility to your corporate information? What are the compliance and regulatory repercussions? And so absolutely, without a minimum, every mobile strategy has to take into account that devices will absolutely be lost. And this is the thing that I can't get across, I can't strain and strenuously enough, that your mobile acceptable use policy has to take into account the fact that things will be lost. And what does that mean? Well, how do you control that information? Are you ensuring that the devices can be wiped remotely? Are you ensuring that the devices have a password on them so that nobody can log in to those devices and see things? Are you forcing that to happen? Is there a way that you can force it, whether your internal IT staff is doing it or your outsourced IT staff is doing it? And that's, at a bare minimum, those things have to be in place. So before we continue on, I'd like to take a quick pause and have one little, another little poll question to feel out where we're at in kind of this discussion right now. So the question that I have right now is, how do you view mobile and BYOD access to your network? You currently offer it, we believe in it, but we don't offer it yet. We're working on being able to offer it soon. and we don't believe in it, and we won't be offering it. So let me know where you guys sit on this. Really need to get that theme to Jeopardy going. Okay, almost there. Actually, we're a little over half, so if we can get you guys to vote a little bit. Here we go. Maybe this will help. All right, come on, guys. Wake up. Let's go. I got half of you going now. All right, how we doing? You guys still with me? All right, I'm gonna another 5 seconds and close the poll here. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? All right, here we go. Closing the poll, and here's what we found. So 33% currently offer it. About half of that say you believe in it but don't offer it yet. And about half of you are working on being able to offer it soon. So that's interesting if you think about this. Again, there's a dichotomy between what you think is going on and what is actually going on. What I mean by that is, so 50% of you said we're working on being able to offer it soon, yet 87% of you said you currently get corporate email on your phone. So does that mean you're getting corporate email and you're not, there's no policy and company-wide offering, and yet you're still getting email on your phones? So there's a big disconnect there. So because half of you are saying you don't offer it yet, but more than half of you are saying you get corporate email. So something's not quite jiving there, and that's just that's okay. I think that proves the point that this is all really murky, and we're all trying to wrap our hands around it and get control of this. And as a business owner and key decision maker, the whole point is to get control of this before it gets too out of control. So you're getting corporate email, and yet there's no policy and no initiative that's running it. It's out there in the netherworld. So I'm gonna pull this down and continue on. And like Nadia mentioned, if there's any questions, certainly please raise your hand and we'll chat about that. So at this point, we're going to talk a little bit more about what a policy should look like and what an acceptable use policy, because to us that's the starting point, is setting down what the policy looks like, having something that your users are going to sign and know that this is the direction that the company should be taking, and moving in that direction. So things to consider in your mobile policy. So access and authentication, meaning who has access and who has access to what. How do users authenticate to get that information? What is acceptable usage and How do you educate your staff on how to use and access this data and how to protect it? What email accounts people should have access to? How it's going to be configured, and who's going to do the configuration. Do you just give it to your staff and say, here's your login information, go to it? Or do you have IT do it so that they're in control of who has access and how it's being accessed and control over that sort of information? Where the data is going to be stored, what sort of malware protection you have, who has access to what applications. How do you control guest networking? So when somebody walks in the door and wants to get out on the internet, how do you control that? Do you have a separate VLAN for your guests, or are they piggybacking on your main network and having access to your domain and you don't even realize that? And lastly, what thought is being given to SMS or text messaging, texting information about your company and intellectual property. So those are some of the policy considerations when you're building the policy. And now some of the questions to ask yourself when you're putting together the policy is, how do you enforce security in a BYOD environment? How do you know who's mobile and what they're doing on their mobile devices? Is the company liable for what employees do on personal devices that they use for work? Is there a practical limit to how many devices a company can support? What does it cost to manage a great diversity of devices? And can one device actually support both personal and corporate needs? So these are all really great questions. And the thing is that there aren't any standard and pat sort of answers for you. These are all things that we need to think about as we're building our acceptable use policy. But it goes to the concept that some sort of policy needs to be in place, some sort of initiative, some sort of control around all of these devices has to be put in place, or it's just going to be chaos out there. So what are some of the foundations of a mobile policy? One, be realistic. Don't go crazy. Don't try to batten down all the hatches because it's never going to happen. Don't look for perfection. Start out with the basics. What should your password be like? What should encryption look like? How should you control the aspect of remote wipe? And these might be aspects that you might have to talk about with legal counsel in terms of, hey, if somebody brings in their personal device and they put corporate email on their personal device and they separate from you, whether you fire them or they quit, what rights do you have to wipe their devices remotely if they don't give it to you at the time of separation and they have your email on there? You could certainly disconnect their email from the company side, from the corporate side, but that doesn't mean that all that email and everything, all their attachments and everything that went with it gets wiped off of their device. It just means nothing new is going out to them. So that's a pretty big concern. You need to track who's mobile and what they're doing. Make it simple and make it simple to get up and running. Centralize your control of this. Leverage your ID department or your outsourced resources for device management. A really big thing that people forget is to spread the word about your progress, because this is a really big PR benefit. Is as you go mobile and as you implement these controls, talk about them, get them out there, because it's a big plus. It is what's going to be managing the perceptions of your staff and of your customers. And lastly, which kind of goes with the first item of being realistic, is understand that your policy will need to change. Things to think about is be sure you require a strong password, set up the devices to automatically lock after a specified period of inactivity, and be sure that you're able to remotely wipe devices if they're lost or if the staff is terminated. Those are the three minimum things that I would strongly suggest that you have in your acceptable use policy for mobility. So that's kind of the overview of the concepts of what's going on out there, what you should be doing in terms of you're building your policy, building this initiative. But I have one last poll question before I turn it over, and I'm going to turn it over to Scott to talk a little bit about what we do and how we're managing devices and how we're managing this for our clients and hundreds of devices right now. to kind of give you some input on our approach and what we found to work. A quick little poll question of what is your current policy? So what is your current policy towards mobile and BYOD? You allow it and you have a documented acceptable use policy. You allow both but don't have a documented AUP. You allow mobile but not BYOD. And we don't have either, but we don't have a documented AUP. So this is going to help us get a better perception of what's going on out there and certainly to improve these webinars going forward and what we're delivering to our clients. So your input would be greatly appreciated. Now let me see if I can get Jeopardy working again. Okay, I think we have a little bit more activity this time, so I'm going to wrap it up and close it off pretty quickly here, and share with you. So 17% of you have allow both and have a documented acceptable use policy. Kudos to you. That's what I found pretty slim out there in the market these days. We allow both but don't have a documented AUP, and we allow mobile but not BYOD. So you can see that half of you guys allow it but don't have a documented acceptable use policy. And like I said, that's the place to start is let's wrap something around this. Let's wrap some policy. Let's wrap what it is that as a company, how we're going to support this, how we're going to run it, what the rules and regulations are in place. And that should be the main starting point. So like I said, I'm going to turn it over to Scott at this point. If you guys have any questions, please raise your hands, and we'll move forward and go from there.
All right, thanks, Craig. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about how FPA specifically is solving these issues for our clients and sort of what the specifics are involved with that and what it looks like. So for our managed service clients, we address this in a variety of ways from a technical perspective. We perform inventory and track all the devices. So we have a little piece of software that sits on the actual device that reports back to us and lets our network operations center lets them know what's going on with the devices. We have the ability to lock and wipe the devices if they're lost or stolen. We can reset the passwords. Locate lost devices, that's pretty important. If somebody leaves something behind, they can let us know and we can find out where it is if the GPS is enabled on the device. We have granular control policies, so we have the ability to make it so that certain things in the phone, certain security features have to be on, they have to do updates, that kind of thing. We also provide a written policy to our clients. So it's sort of a template that you'd add into your existing computer use policy that would be able to, from a policy standpoint, address a lot of the issues we talked about earlier in the webinar. So what devices do we support? Craig mentioned all the major sort of players in the game earlier, so we support those as well. BlackBerry, Android, any of the Apple devices that are iOS, so your iPads, iPhones, that kind of thing, and any of the Windows devices. So what sort of monitoring and alerting do we get if there are issues with the devices? If we see that the device has been unavailable for a period of time, that it's just dropped off the face of the planet, we get alerts for that, and then we can let you know so we can find out what's going on with that particular device. If the device has been jailbroken or rooted, so those of you that aren't familiar with this, people have the ability to change the way that the operating system works on the phone. So that can open up avenues for security vulnerabilities. Some people that are sort of more advanced users might want to do this for one reason or another. Probably the most common is so that they can switch from one carrier that has iPhone to another carrier that doesn't have iPhone, stuff like that. So if the device has been modified, we're going to get an alert on that too. If the SIM card has been tampered with, so it's similar to rooting people who are advanced users, changing the way the phone works out of the box so that they can do something with it that's sort of in their own realm or whatever they want to do to change things. So mobile device security, another ability that we have with the software that resides in the phone is we can remotely lock out access. So as soon as we know about it, we can make it so the phone can't be accessible and that it just stops working at that point. We can reset the passcode on the phone, so the password to unlock the actual phone to gain access to it, we can change that remotely. We also have the ability to wipe the device and restore it back to its factory default. So that's something that can help control that information from getting out there into the hands that would not be desirable for your company. So mobile device tracking, we do have the ability to get from the GPS device on the phone, we can get tracking information back into our network operations center and let you know where the phone is. So that can be a pretty powerful tool. So remote configuration management. So one of the things that's pretty cool about this, Craig had mentioned earlier about sort of the data leak aspect of it, where mobile devices can connect up to your network and just basically suck up all your bandwidth using, for non-work related tasks. So using the application that we can install onto the devices, that's how we actually would join them to the wireless network. So we would only allow devices that we want to be able to access our wireless network to go through that actual software application. We can eliminate the need to give out the password to employees to allow them to connect their devices. We can control that all centrally so they don't even know the password. So if somebody brings in a new device, they're not going to just be able to automatically add that device to the Wi-Fi network and slow down the rest of your infrastructure. You get to pick which devices are on there, and you don't ever actually share any of the passwords with the end users. So it's a really effective way to kind of head that off at the pass, so to say. So we also, obviously, just like any of the rest of the solutions we offer with our managed services, we have pretty granular reporting that we have from the mobile devices. So we get which devices are on there, so you get that nice clean inventory to know what's being managed, which policies are being applied to which devices, and then just overall inventory of all the devices that are at your site. So at this point, we're going to want to, we thank everybody for attending the webinar. For more information, you can go ahead and check out our website at fpainc.com. Or if you'd like to evaluate what's going on with your network, take a look, see if you want to get involved with this so you can gain control, please give us a call. Our email addresses are up there on the screen. You can give me a call anytime and we can chat about it. And hopefully we can get this solution solved. Get a solution to your problem, I should say. So in addition, I'd like to remind everybody that we are going to have a new webinar coming up within the next month here, and the topic is going to be the cloud. So we know there's been a lot of talk about the cloud, and some of our clients are moving there, and we wanted to use this as an opportunity to educate everybody in how we see the cloud coming at us and what sort of opportunities are going to be there. So look for that invite coming up soon. So let's see, make sure we don't have any questions here. Yeah, it looks like we don't have any questions. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. And thanks again, and have a nice day.